Selamat sore, Assalamualaikum yang terhormat Bapak Pak, Ibu-Ibu, selamat datang. Welcome to the seminar Inclusive Governance for Sustainable Urbanization, Changing Our Future Through Co-Creative Processes. I'm Edwin de Jong from Radboud University in the Netherlands, and I have the honor to chair this session together with my colleague Kai Otsuki from the University of Utrecht. In this session is, however, although you could not see it properly in the introduction, the result of myself and Kai, but the organizational capacities of many other colleagues, most notably Professor Rianta, Alice Saputra, and Ari Susantra from Universities of Gadjah Mada, and Pak Bagus Takwin from UI, and Terry Setiawan from Radboud University. So thank you for organizing this session. In this session, two Indonesia and Netherlands joint research projects, which are geared towards sustainable Indonesian cities, propose to discuss good practices with and challenges for properly engaging stakeholders into a co-creative process to change in the Indonesian context. So, as you know, the fast-growing Indonesian economy has triggered enormous urbanization, and the vast majority now live in densely populated cities, with a large group of urban poor dispersed into overcrowded settlements with inadequate public services, water supply, sanitation, and healthcare, and other ecological amenities. So this unsustainable mode of urbanization imposes high ecological tolls, such as surface water pollution, groundwater overuses, and land subsistence, and unmanaged solid waste. So next to a rapid urbanization, climate change has further impacted the well-being of urban communities. For example, through floods in coastal cities such as Jakarta, Samarinda, Semarang and Pontianak, and many other cities like you know far more better than I do. So creating sustainable Indonesian cities, including those still in the making, such as the proposed new Indonesian capital in East Kalimantan, requires an inclusive governance roadmap that builds the capacity to mitigate environmental disasters and enhance people's well-being. Co-planning and co-creation with relevant stakeholders is therefore crucial to our change pathway to create both societal and technological solutions for socio-ecological resilient cities. But realizing this kind of collaboration requires careful preparation, as most of you might have experienced. So how do we engage stakeholders in a co-creative process to change in a society which is dominated by power relations and where the government is often distrusted or considered to be unreliable? And how do we overcome issues imbued in language and conceptualization where people use similar words to denote different things, and where various actors have opposing interests? So, although inclusive governance and participation have become key terms in Indonesian society, as elsewhere in the world, I would say, a true co-creative process in which all relevant stakeholders are equally involved in the development, feasibility, piloting, implementation, and evaluation phases remains challenging. So, as a starting point of this session, we provide a brief overview of both projects that have been granted by NWO and BRIN, called the Regional Planning and Sustainable Urbanization within the Cooperation Indonesia project, which consists of the projects of Following Frontiers of the Forest City and Resilient Indonesian Slums Envisioned, or RISE. And in both projects, we have developed a framework which describes how the intervention affects change, a so-called theory of change. What it is and what it implies for inclusive governance will be briefly explained by Pak Bagus Takwin from the University of Indonesia. And after that, we will have 5 short presentations or pitches of NGO representatives, a government official, and business manager who will reflect on their experiences with engaging a variety of stakeholders in different stages in transformation processes in the Indonesian context. So these various viewpoints will provide inputs together for further discussion in which you are all invited to participate in envisioning inclusive governance as a decision-making process. So may I now ask Kai Otsuki to take the floor and inform us briefly about the Forest City project. Please go ahead, Kai.
Thank you. Hello. So my name is Kei Otsuki from the Department of Human Geography and Planning in the Utrecht University, and one of the co-principal investigators for the new NWO and Respect Brain project, together with the Professor Rejanta from the Gajah Mada University. And I will quickly maybe share a presentation. I think, I don't know how it works. You don't see my screen, right? Okay. Click share, yeah. Is it sharing? Oh, sorry. I think I'm a bit confused about this. I think now I'm sharing, right? Well, okay. Well, I'm going to explain anyway in my project without losing too much time. So, Following Frontiers of the Forest City is the name of the project. And we have, so Utrecht University and Gajah Mada universities are leading, and also Universitas Lambung Mangkurat in Kalimantan and IHE Delft from the water and the water research in Delft are the partners, the academic partners. And we also have societal partners from the provincial government of East Kalimantan and the Peatland Restoration Agency, as well as Royal Haskoning and Institut Teknologi Kalimantan. And the main objective of the research is about researching the implications of the relocation of a new capital city in Indonesia. So the president announced last year or in 2019 already that he was intending to move Jakarta to East Kalimantan. And we wanted to follow what's going to happen with the relocation. So main objective of the research is to establish a framework to keep on following frontiers of urbanization in East Kalimantan to achieve ecological sustainability, disaster reduction, and socioeconomic inclusion. And more specific objectives, that we have 3 objectives. One is to generate knowledge on processes and impacts that a mega project and its frontiers create beyond the planned project area. So there is a master plan, but we want to know what's going to happen to the ecosystem and social systems beyond that planned, neatly planned area. And in order to do that, we aim to develop capacity of local researchers and citizens by strengthening existing research infrastructure, and which is for us is very important, but I think for this session also is relevant because research project is always have a time limitation about 4 years, in this case 4 years, 3 years at the Indonesian side, and we want to actually follow much longer period of impacts of such a mega project for the sustainable urbanization in Indonesia, which means we have to have some kind of permanent engagement with the existing infrastructure in order to keep on researching the phenomenon. So this is the kind of part of the objective of our project, how to develop such a capacity for long-term engagement. And in order to do that, we also try to establish a multi-stakeholder platform to co-design tools to assess impacts and suggest short and long-term solutions to ensure sustainability and inclusivity of planned and unplanned urbanization. So our consortium is formed, of course, in Indonesia and in the Netherlands, but then with the very close collaborations. We have in total 7 work packages, and from work package 1 to 3, are mainly led by Indonesian universities and colleagues. So one is more focusing on spatial impact mapping. Other work package 2 talks more about mapping of impacts on the specifically peatland and forest ecosystems. Work package 3 will look more specifically into socioeconomic and land use mapping. And all these are also collaborating with the Dutch researchers who is going to analyze also about the distribution of water and related risks, and of course the social and economic inequalities that will come with it. And after taking all these field-based research outcomes or outputs, that we would like to create pathways towards how to make impacts through co-creation and capacity development, how we actually started this session by when talking about how we actually envision inclusive governance through our research project. So we have some components of, for example, creating learning labs where we co-design scenarios and capacity building measures with stakeholders, and we try to understand also the roles of international corporations. Therefore, we would like to collaborate more with, for example, Dutch companies investing in Indonesia, how they see their impacts. So I think Terry will talk about the theory of change more specifically, how we envision this, but in our project, this is more or less the outline of a theory of change. I hope you can see it. But we identify the problem, and then we identify what we would need in order to give an impact of the project as a kind of establishing a model of sustainable inclusive urbanization established hopefully in the new capital. But then in order to understand that, we need indeed those sort of from early on, the multiple stakeholders involved in the research project, and then throughout the process that we try to collaborate, both students and all those different partners. So for us, the co-creation of knowledge for future urbanization is very important. And as I said, the sort of long-term collaboration with Indonesian researchers, well, between Netherlands and Indonesia, but then more strongly, we envision a collaboration with local universities and to involve students more prominently in our research, because Indonesian universities is actually very active in sending students to do their field work in different islands. And I think it will be very useful and also important for our collaboration to involve students. And as I mentioned, a multi-stakeholder platform will be very important. How to sustain it beyond the project period maybe can be one discussion point. And indeed, how to collaboratively sort of consolidate and build the research infrastructure through such a multi-stakeholder collaboration. So this is more or less what I think is important, and maybe we can discuss afterwards. Is that okay, Edwin?
Thank you very much, Kai. That's good also for us to know exactly what you're doing, that you have even more working projects than we have. So I hope that give you a kind of overview what is going on in the project, and we have some time for discussion afterwards if you have some questions and answers. Before we continue with the theory of change, I will give a brief overview or a glimpse, you can say, of our project. I have the honor to present that, but I'm just representing a large group of Indonesian and Dutch scientists and NGO employees that make rights possible. I will try to share my screen. Can you share the screen, Meta, the PowerPoint that I sent you? Now it works. I think you can see the screen now, right? Can you see the PowerPoint? Yes. Okay, great. Yeah, like I said, our project is called Resilient Indonesian Slums and Vision It, RISE. In short, building an inclusive governance with people and water to make social ecological interactions more resilient to water-related disasters. A mouthful, but I will try to give you a little bit of more of the insight of what it comprises precisely. Can we go to the next slide? I try to, yeah. So this is an overview of all the organizations, the 9 different organizations that are involved in the project. People, scientists are stemming from Indonesian and Dutch universities, as you can see, from ITB, from Maranatha, from UPI, and also from the Indonesian Universitas Indonesia, as well as Rabat University and Open University. And we also have people working at LAPAN, Deltares, and HIVOS Southeast Asia, who is the NGO involved in our program. So this in total is quite some people. It's about 20 people working at these different kind of organizations and trying to make possible our project. And together, I don't know precisely how to go to the next slide. Maybe it's because of my, yeah. And together we try to reach the aim of our project, which is to develop an inclusive governance roadmap to transform Indonesian cities towards socio-ecological resilience that builds capacity to mitigate water-related disasters and enhance people's well-being. So to arrive at such an inclusive governance roadmap, we follow a comparative case study approach that focuses both on the socio-ecological interactions involved in different water-related problems, as well as qualitative as well as quantitative, and such as floodings and clean drinking water and sanitation in slum areas in the 3 cities, Pontianak in West Kalimantan, Manado in North Sulawesi, and Bima at Sumbawa. So these cities present most of the social and water challenges Indonesian cities face nowadays. As such, you can say the project builds upon research conducted between 2018 and 2020 by our collaborating partner Deltares to design for flood-resilient cities. Together with the World Bank and the Indonesian government, Deltares have selected these cities as exemplary cases, you could say. In their research, they basically focused on quantitative water issues, but they found that a better understanding of qualitative water issues and social issues is required to arrive at the more sophisticated modeling for flooding. So that's in fact what we connect to, or what we used as a kind of point of departure. So the fast-growing Indonesian economy, like I said in the introduction, has triggered tremendous urbanization, which is often unsustainable and comes with high ecological tolls and effects for household water resources, especially in the slum vicinities, which has a tremendous effect on the well-being of slum dwellers. So next to rapid urbanization, like I also stated, climate change has further impacted the well-being of people in the slums through floods and drought, and as they are often located closely to rivers or coastal areas at the outskirts of the city, those are the ones who are usually the victims of these changes in the environment. So slums are important, but often neglected or at least undervalued by policy and decision makings in national and regional plans. So they remain a kind of blind spot, you can say, on most maps. And when they do come into focus, plans and policies are usually based on comprehensive technical approaches that use ecological processes to achieve sustainability. For example, the Building with Nature project in Indonesia. Therefore, finding sustainable solutions to rise to the water challenge, you can say, requires active engagement with the people affected by policy decisions and other stakeholders, who must live with and participate in the implementation of potential solutions. So that's why we favor an inclusive governance with a strong emphasis on collaboration with all people involved and a focus on inclusion in terms of process and outcome, as well as the emancipatory process. The study, as such, will synthesize resilience and well-being in a relational approach to strengthen and broaden knowledge on urban communities' resilience to ecological change. As such, you can say we will create a better understanding of how complex systems evolve and how individuals and societies are simultaneously embedded within and act as agents of change in those systems. So this can provide guidance, you can say, for more inclusive governance to co-create Indonesian slums. It also envisions the rise to the water challenges applying across whole urban regions, both old and new, and those still in the making, such as the proposed new Indonesian capital. So it follows that our main research question is, how can community well-being and socio-ecological resilience in the slum areas in Manado, Pontianak, and Bima be enhanced to a deeper understanding among stakeholders of potentially transformative pathways towards sustainable water management, potentially transformative pathways considered by the various different stakeholders, you could say. Maybe you can also show the next slide. Yes, thank you. What we are going to do with all these people trying to meet this objective and answer this question is organized through 5 sub-projects, and within these 5 sub-projects we have different working projects financed by the Indonesian government, and we have different people financed by NWO, such as postdocs and PhDs, and as such we have projects where people together focus on the well-being issues. How is well-being defined? How is it valued? A baseline survey is conducted about all kind of issues that are related to the different projects. We have a specific sub-project in which we focus on water quality and quantity analysis, already conducted by the World Bank, but water quality measurements will be conducted by our own scientists, specifically from ITB and LAPAN, together measuring the water sensitivity, you can say. In sub-project 4, we focus on inclusive governance to resilient slums, mapping current policy and governance, power relations, what kind of stakeholders are already involved into inclusive governance, what is necessary to make inclusive governance possible. And that together leads to the development of a kind of socio-ecological interaction model to resilient slums that we use for developing a knowledge sharing and capacity building kind of trajectory in work project 5, you can say in sub-project 5, that will lead to a kind of e-learning model, a kind of MOOC, you can say, which will be tested and which will be used by training several people involved in these different areas, especially by our NGO Hivos. So together you can say by the combination of these sub-projects, we will try to reach integratively and transdisciplinary our objective that I formulated before. The last slide, can you please go on ahead? So by giving this short overview, of course, it's far more comprehensive in the explanation. I didn't give you a full overview of the theory of change, which is quite complex as such, you can imagine, but it's quite a challenge in further operationalizing the theory of changes model. In our perspective, inclusive governance refers to enabling a wide range of right holders, knowledge holders, and stakeholders to participate in decision-making, to capture diverse values, enhance capacity, and promote accountability, legitimacy, and just outcomes. So to become transformative, you can say inclusive governance must be operationalized in ways that empower those whose interests are currently not being met and represent values underpinning transformative change for sustainability. However, decision-making processes have often inadequately addressed the interests of marginalized communities. So how can we make sure that they are included or at least represented at various stages of the project? That's what we are going to further unravel, I hope, during the following hour. And now I like to give the floor to Bagus Takwin, who provided some more information about the theory of change in general and the various stages that are involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. Good afternoon, selamat sore, everyone. Okay, I will briefly describe the use of the theory of change in relation to co-creative process in the RISE project. In carrying out complex social intervention, it is critical to incorporate a theory-driven approach to evaluation. However, the theory use needs to include practical guidance for implementers. In other words, we need theory that function to explain phenomena that also provide guidance for the implementation of intervention and explain the changes that occur in real social setting. We'll take a theory-based approach to the design and evaluation of complex intervention by adapting and integrating the program design and evaluation tool, theory of change, TOC, into our framework. Next slide. Theory of change is a theory of how and why an initiative works that can be tested empirically by measuring indicators for its expected step on a hypothesized causal path to impact. It will develop in collaboration with stakeholders and modified during the intervention development and evaluation process through a process of continuous reflection to explore change and how it occurs. The TOC then is represented visually in a TOC map, which is a graphical representation of the causal pathway. Next, this is the example of TOC. Yeah, I think we are already familiar with this. Next, the application of our TOC is in our research project is expected to strengthen the key stages of our research. There are 4 stages. First, initial development and design stage. Second, feasibility and piloting stage. And the third, evaluation stage and implementation stage. Next, I will describe each of these stages. Next slide. Okay. First, in development stage, we built a TOC along with a research design. By this, we built a consensus with stakeholders and place our intervention research in the context in which the research takes place. We will do this participatory approach by bringing together various stakeholders to develop a TOC map and to encourage stakeholder support for the project. This takes the form of a series of workshops, interviews, or focus group discussion with a choice of methods based on what is feasible and locally acceptable. In the workshop, stakeholders first agree on the real-world impact they want to achieve. They then identify causal pathway through which this change can be achieved in that context using available resources. It is articulated as a set of prerequisites leading to a result, the order of which can be adjusted as the path developed. Determining what contextual conditions are needed to achieve outcomes, what resources are needed to implement intervention, and how the program derives commitment from those resources is an important outcome of the process. Next slide. At the feasibility and pilot stage, the TOC allows the systematic identification of knowledge gaps to generate research questions that strengthen the intervention design. TOC testing conducted to reduce implementation failures, including testing procedures, estimating recruitment or retention, and determining sample size. The results to be achieved in this stage are TOC strengthening, highlight barriers to implementation early on and help develop strategies to overcome them, improves piloting by providing evidence of link between early project activities and short-term outcomes to refine the intervention design. Next slide. Evaluation stage. Evaluation using TOC framework involves measuring indicators at all stages of implementations. TOC can be used as the theoretical framework to base a detailed process evaluation necessary to unpack the black box of a complex intervention. It allows for multiple outcomes of the intervention to be specified within a theoretical framework, thereby explicitly evaluating the multiple outcomes that complex intervention may lead to. The analysis of data using a TOC approach has the potential to combine process and effectiveness indicators into a single analysis, which can help untangle whether, how, and why an intervention has an impact in a particular context, and whether it may be suitable for scale up or for adaptation to new setting. Next slide. In the stage of implementation, Implementation experience and evidence gathered from evaluations are combined to revise the TOC and produce a final story of how the intervention worked in a given setting. This is important for dissemination, surveillance and monitoring, and long-term follow-up. For TOC strengthening, this will improve dissemination of results with a powerful visual common sense tool, which can be used throughout the project with a diverse range of stakeholders. This can provide a more operational description of intervention, the practical guidance for implementers. It also facilitates local buy-in and adoption, and illustrates the active ingredients of intervention to facilitate adaptation in new contexts. And we hope with this approach, we can involve stakeholders, including government, and facilitate the implementation of inclusive governments. I think because the time is up, that's all from my presentation. Thank you for listening. I give back to Edwin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Bagus. May I now ask Parianta and Pasani, from the provincial government of East Kalimantan, to present us some examples, good practices of stakeholder approaches.
Thank you very much, Pak Edwin. Good afternoon, and everybody who joined this meeting. Let me introduce Bapak Abdullah Sani. He is the head of the Research and Development Agency of East Kalimantan Province. Is joining us in Yogyakarta to make sure that the connection line for the communication is good. So you can imagine that even we will have a new capital city in Kalimantan, but we are not quite sure at this moment about internet connection. So we work together in Yogyakarta to prepare this presentation. Pak Abdullah, silakan melakukan presentasi. Kemudian untuk beberapa waktu saya akan memberikan terjemahannya untuk audiens yang mungkin tidak memahami bahasa. Excuse me, for the presentation, Bapak Abdullah, he will do it in bahasa Indonesia, and I will give you the translation. Silakan, Pak Abdullah.
Thank you, Mr. Edwin Jong, moderator, Mrs. K. Otsuki, dan Bapak Bagus Takwin, ya?
Iya, dari UI.
Dari Universitas Indonesia, dan seluruh peserta meeting, the program winner conference ICT project in East Kalimantan. I'm sorry, I presented in bahasa. Saya akan menyampaikan grand strategi yang harus dibangun di dalam pembangunan ibu kota negara. Yang pertama adalah konsep of new capital city itu, isu yang ada adalah pertama masalah pembangunan. Pembangunan yang terkoneksi. Artinya di sini perlu ada jalur jalan, jembatan, building, clean water, electricity, telecommunication, to digitalisasi, and so on. Kemudian isu kedua adalah environment, masalah lingkungan. Yang ketiga masalah sumber daya manusia, human resources. Yang keempat adalah social and culture. Nah, isu ini tentunya akan membangun bagaimana ibu kota negara tadi yang bagus dan berkelanjutan. Kemudian juga harus didukung dengan pemanfaatan ya berkelanjutan dari sumber daya alam yang ada di Kalimantan Timur, kemudian adanya sister city and sister province. Di Kalimantan Timur ada 10 kabupaten kota dan perlu ada juga kerjasama antar provinsi. Di utara ada Kalimantan Utara, di selatan ada Kalimantan Selatan. Kemudian juga harus didukung dengan adanya suatu financing ya, support. Ini artinya bisa di situ konsorsium dari World Bank dan sebagainya dalam bentuk juga hibah selain APBN, juga termasuk juga corporate social responsibility yang ada di Kalimantan Timur, yang tentunya di Provinsi Kalimantan Timur ini banyak sumber daya alam yang tersedia di sini. Yang terakhir, kami akan dukung dengan data informasi untuk riset ini, untuk program riset. Ini ada beberapa diantaranya seperti beberapa riset yang kita lakukan berkaitan dengan delta Mahakam, daerah aliran sungai, dan beberapa penelitian lainnya. Silakan Pak Aryan.
Terima kasih Pak Sani. Pak Abdullah Sani just tell us about the commitment of his office in supporting this research, because he considered that this research is very important in the establishment of future Indonesian capital city, which is expected to be sustainable and also supported by various facilities, which is emphasized as a smart city also. So this is very important also for East Kalimantan, as the province is very rich with natural resources also, but also many companies located in the province, that the existence of this new capital will also benefit the province in general. Silakan Pak, lanjutkan.
Oke, next. New Capital City Development strategis, grand strategi yang kita inginkan, paling tidak strategi inilah yang bisa mengangkat Kalimantan Timur ya menjadi ibu kota negara yang harus kita siapkan dengan baik ya, inclusive urbanization in Kalimantan and beyond. Di sini kita lihat bahwa perlu adanya geographic strategi. Posisi Kalimantan Timur berada di Indonesia sentral Indonesia, dan kita mempunyai Indonesian archipelago, sea lane, to Alki 2, Strait Makassar, yang nantinya di masa depan itu menjadi jalur ramai di dalam alur perairan ya, di mana Indonesia ingin membangun tol laut. Ini Selat Makassar ini merupakan jalur yang straight to Asia Afrika, kemudian Europe and Amerika, dan posisinya sangat strategis menggantikan nanti bila Selat Malaka itu jenuh Alki 1. Nah, kita juga banyak penting masalah geografi ini, strategi geografi ini di dalam pembangunan ibu kota negara ini. Dan ini tentunya ada konektivitas antar kepulauan termasuk sister city, province city. Kemudian juga harus didukung dengan ada strategi capital planning strategi. Nah, ini penting sekali ya, masalah tata ruang khususnya bagaimana kita membangun ibu kota negara yang terintegrasi, yang sustainable. Ini perlu dipikirkan, jangan sampai kita membawa apa yang sudah pernah terjadi di Jakarta itu ke Kalimantan Timur. Itu menjadi pelajaran kita, jangan sampai itu terulang kembali. Kemudian juga kita juga harus memperhatikan strategi sumber daya manusianya. Nah, kita harus mempersiapkan sumber daya manusia yang ada di Kalimantan Timur dan sekitarnya, harus benar-benar dapat mensupport daripada pembangunan dari ibu kota negara ini. Kemudian juga strategi selanjutnya adalah masalah pertumbuhan ekonomi, ya. Pertumbuhan ekonomi, kita ingin adanya suatu kawasan di mana Kalimantan Timur banyak sekali kawasan-kawasan, ada kawasan ekonomi khusus, ada kawasan industri dan sebagainya. Kemudian juga kita perlu strategi food estate strategi. Kita punya lahan banyak. Kemudian juga harus dipikirkan masalah strategi pertahanan keamanan. Yang terakhir yang penting adalah kita ingin menciptakan environment strategi, khususnya lingkungan hijau dan ekonomi hijau. Inilah grand strategi di mana nanti ini semua akan menjadi suatu ibu kota yang integrated and sustainable. Silakan Pak Rianto.
Terima kasih. Waktunya tinggal 1 menit untuk saya.
Kemudian saya terakhir akan menyampaikan learning laboratory yang sudah dilakukan oleh penelitian Kalimantan Timur berupa video di mana kami mengangkat kearifan local wisdom yang ada di Kalimantan Timur. Ini sebagai contoh bagaimana kami sudah berbuat. Silakan diputar sebentar.
Dari sana. Ini. One minute. Yes.
Demikian Oxy yang merupakan singkatan dari Indonesian Science and Research Area Logo merupakan area jejaring ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi melalui inovasi dan riset yang mengangkat kearifan budaya lokal Kalimantan Timur. Keberadaan Demikian Oxy didasarkan pada peraturan bersama Menteri Negara Riset dan Teknologi Nomor 3 dan Menteri Dalam Negeri Nomor 36 Tahun 2012 tentang penguatan sistem inovasi daerah dan keputusan Menteri Riset dan Teknologi Nomor 7/2009 garis miring KP garis miring 2001 tentang kebijakan kebudayaan ilmu pengetahuan teknologi melalui pembangunan pusat pada ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi daerah. Dewan Pengisah memanfaatkan aset perbaikan daerah seluas 6.821 meter persegi di Jalan MT Haryono Kota Samarinda Tepat di belakang dan samping kantor Badan Penelitian dan Pengembangan Daerah Provinsi Kalimantan Timur, pembangunan Demonstration Office adalah upaya mengoptimalkan aset pemerintah daerah yang belum dimanfaatkan, sehingga dapat digunakan sebagai wadah inovasi dan riset ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi yang mengangkat kearifan budaya lokal, selain juga dapat dimanfaatkan sebagai wadah rekreasi berbasis ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi melalui inovasi. Demonstration Office bisa menjadi salah satu ikon kota Samarinda sebagai ibu kota provinsi Kalimantan Timur yang bisa menghasilkan pendapatan asli daerah.
Thank you everybody. Terima kasih. Selamat sore.
Thank you very much, Pak Sani dan Pak Rianta. And may I now introduce Pak Joko from Universitas Indonesia to share his good experiences with stakeholder inclusion.
Hello, Edwin.
Hi, welcome.
Hi. Your Indonesian is quite well, so okay. Can I begin now?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Edwin. Hello, everyone. My name is Joko Adianto. I'm from Department of Architecture, Universitas Indonesia. Well, greeting from rainy Jakarta right now. I believe my time is limited in 5 minutes. Hopefully, I can wrap up my sharing on time. First of all, I would like to start my sharing for today relates to my involvement in several studies of kampung improvement programs and affordable housing provision in Indonesia, most of them in Jakarta province. Through that journey, I arrived at a position that kampung settlement or slum settlement that we used to said should be considered as the housing solution for the underprivileged rather than the problem, as it is mostly judged according to their grotesque aesthetics or appearance. Because kampung provides home and social support for the poor, as the public and private sector fail to provide affordable housing quantitatively that meets their preferences. Anyway, the government annually deliver various programs, kampung improvement programs, but still considered fail because of lack of comprehensive understanding about the kampung livelihood, fragmented policies, and also programs ranging from the land tenure security, socio-economic and physical housing, and neighborhood quality improvement. I believe that silo working culture of bureaucracy and companies with the shortage of the government budget are among the most important factors of this failure. I would like to share several of my studies verbally. My study in urban agrarian reform in Jakarta province since 2019 is an attempt to provide land tenure security and affordable housing for the poor who live in kampungs, which realizes me the urgency for collaborative action between the central and municipal government, academics, community members, and the private sectors also. Through the production of common knowledge, we develop a main generic model and its variant, a lot of variants actually, according to the particular context of each kampung, because they have a different context and histories. Model of the types of land tenure, participatory housing design, and the building management by the community. Then I will tell the story of my recent study in participatory planning in Jakarta province, which also provides an understanding on how the physical, social, and economy improvement program should and can be delivered comprehensively with the community engagement, of course, from the identification, design, and also implementation stage. The generated sense of belonging from the participatory process enables the community, hopefully, to maintain and develop the improvement in the future. For instance, we try to design and develop a communal space construction in a very high density kampung settlements, which can be utilized for various social economic improvement programs and activities, which can be also collaborated with the private sector and a non-profit organization for funding the activities. Finally, Einstein reminds us that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Therefore, I believe that the politics of recognition is essential to consider kampung as an essential entity of Indonesian cities. Then changing the way we think and work should be delivered continuously through the intense co-creation process with all the stakeholders. Maybe that is a brief my explanation. Thank you very much for your kind attention and invitation in this discussion forum. Thank you very much, Edwin. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Joko, also for keeping it brief. Although officially we are scheduled until 1:45, there is no session afterwards, and we started a bit later. So I hope you still have time to continue a bit longer, maybe somewhere until 1, to at least hear all the presentations that are prepared and also have some time for discussion afterwards. So may I now ask Mr. Dimas from Royal Haskoning to share some of his experiences with us.
Hi there. Thank you, Edwin. So yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me in this very interesting session. Yeah. So I will then share my screen in a full screen. So please inform if everybody can access the screen. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. My name is Dimas Panjaitan, and I'm represent the Royal Haskoning DHV in Indonesia, or PT Haskoning Indonesia. So my role basically is a environmental and social performance manager. So by participating in this event, then remind me back when I joined this company around 3 years ago, that basically this company this year celebrating its 140 years of existence globally, and then it starts from the university back then in 1880. So the correlations, the cooperations both with the university, the research center, and the governments is not a new way of Royal Haskoning DHV works globally, but it is our roots, yeah, to develop our service. So back in the environmental and social perspective to this session subject, inclusive governance for sustainable urbanization, so changing our future through co-creative process, I would like to share how the private sector, specifically from the consulting firm, by assisting our client to identify, to assess the risk or impact for any kind of projects. It can be a single standalone project or an integrated project that lies into a bigger area, and if regional scope of work or scope of area, then we need to identify the risks and the impacts, and then by doing the stakeholder engagement process. So the outline, I made some step-by-step guidance to this presentation. The first one, we will talk about what is basically environmental and social components as a project risk and potential impacts, and then general overview about the common stakeholders engagement process, and then the common practice both for national and international requirements, and some of galleries that we done previously in terms of stakeholders engagement activity, and then moving forward, how then we continue with all the process, especially related with the post-pandemic in the near future. So the first main question is, when we talk about the project risk and potential impacts, we define the environmental, social, and components. So this kind of components and also the subcomponents will then be the basic information that we need to share to the stakeholders. Later on, we will discuss about who is the stakeholders I mean about. So for the first thing, we need to share some frequency about what kind of information we need to share. The physiography and environmental chemistry, land and spatial, biology, social, health, safety, and security. This is the basic of environmental and social components that align with both international requirements and also national. By meaning international requirements is simply like the World Bank Group or Asian Development Bank requirements, and for national, we may refer to the latest regulations related with the job creation law, specifically on the environmental management and environmental documents preparation. So this is basically the basic. We need to inform this about how is the risk and the potential impacts of the projects related with the physiography and environmental chemistry. You may see on screen about the sub-components of this physiography and environmental chemistry. We talk about from the climate and meteorology up to the materials and energy. So later on, we will also have the spatial, land and spatial, yeah, with its subcomponents, the biologic components also related with the subcomponents, up to the social, yeah, and then health, safety, and security. So all of it will depends on the complexity of the project itself. When we talk about some regional development, then these specific environmental and social components will not trigger a single impact or risk alone, but it can be cumulative, it can be dependable on each other, and also it can be triggered up to the maybe residual impact or risk. And then we need to talk also about how to mitigate for any risk and potential impacts from this kind of project. The second one, we will talk about the stakeholders engagement. So this is the generic definitions in both accepted by international and also national perspective. So it's stakeholders are persons or groups, yeah, directly or indirectly affected by a project. So it can be a formal, informal representatives, national or local government authorities, politicians, religious leaders, civil society organizations, and groups with special interests, the academic community, or other businesses. So in general, in the screen on the screen, you can notify that identified also about who is the key stakeholders in the in this diagram. We can identify that there are four. The first one is, of course, the project affected peoples. Yeah, it can be individuals or families, even the indigenous groups. So in Indonesia, we often call it masyarakat adat. So there are some gap. There are some difference between the definitions, but we basically it's the same, yeah, the same frame about how we look in the indigenous people and the masyarakat adat. And then the next one is private sector, yeah, including the project financiers like the international financial institutions, the local business and industry associations, and the third one is the public sector. We talk about the government, we talk about the development institutions, and the last but not least is about the advocacy groups. So local and national grassroots NGOs, international advocacy NGOs, religious groups, university and research centers. So all of these four key stakeholders is the important stakeholders to be engaged during the planning up to the whole project life cycle, even to the decommissioning phase. So how to do this activity with a good approach? Basically, there are a couple of elements, yeah, to do the good stakeholder engagement related with the stakeholder identification and analysis, information disclosure. This is important. Have the target, the stakeholders targets need to know what is basically the project, or what is the level of disclosure. So that is the important one. Stakeholder consultations, the activity itself, negotiation and partnership, grievance management. So everybody, the external or internal of the project proponent can share their input, their advice, yeah, about the impact, about the risk to the project proponents for this grievance management. And then stakeholder involvement in project monitoring, reporting to stakeholders and management functions. So the management functions need to be implemented in this whole process. So the next one is about the relationship between number of people engaged and intensity of engagement. So when we talk about, okay, number of people engaged will be bigger compared to the intensity, then we can just use the communication strategy. Then up to the more complex one, when the number of people engaged is limited or very small, but needs some intensity of engagement, some big intensity of engagement, then we need to do the negotiation and partnership. To be more clear, we can refer to this one. So this is the leveling of stakeholders when we talk about the impact assessment type of project or any kind of lenders required projects. Yeah, we then may identify that if it's only about the general public, then external communications is okay. But if there is any adverse effect, adverse impact to the indigenous people or to the indigenous people with some cultural heritage located in their area, then the highest one or the strict one is need to implement the FPIC, free, prior, and informed consent, yeah, and also following by the good faith negotiations. So this is not a simple one. We understand, especially when we talk about the indigenous people, or if there is any cultural heritage available or on the project side. But this is something need to do. Then we get a better anticipation to mitigate the impact or the risk, yeah, and it's supposed to be implemented continuously, not only on the planning stage but up to the operational stage. And when we compare to the common practice of national and international requirements, I put some example related to the EIA. So Indonesia, we have this AMDAL. For international, we have ESIA. And for the technical economic studies, we have some kind of a study specific for the AMDAL in Asia. So there are at least three public participation activity required. So the first one, similar like for the AMDAL and for Asia, some public participation and consultations activity need to be implemented in the scoping stage in the early process of the impact assessment study. And then after we got the information of baseline, before we go to the impact prediction and evaluations, the public also need to be informed. And after we got the impact evaluation result, before we go to mitigation, we need to have also these public participations. The main aim is to get their input, the community input, the stakeholders input on the evaluations, on the determinations of the potential impact, on the impact prediction and evaluations, and on the mitigation plan. And please don't forget about the stakeholders engagement plan, that basically part of the mitigations and need to be applied in the whole project life cycle. So this is galleries. This is basically how we do in the past. I take some examples related with the urban projects and also the rural project. This is one is basically the urban on the project related with the public transportations in Semarang city. So we do a hybrid one. So this is basically me and my team in the office, and this is the government side, yeah, in Semarang. And we also conduct the hybrid public consultations to represent some of the districts, yeah. Some district we divide, yeah, into minimum requirement as per COVID conditions last year. And this is the other one that we conducted in the rural one in Sumba Island. So this is basically something that's still challenge, yeah, to conduct online, yeah, because of the infrastructure. Then we need to go there. We need to visit each site and also meet the local leaders, yeah, especially they call it in Sumba as Rato, yeah, the highest leaders of the local leadership. And this is the important one. When we met on the oldest village in the area, we then meet the highest tribal leaders, and then we do some participatory mapping. So we need to identify how is the land utilization, how is the important sites like the sacred sites, sorry, and then we need to do some drawings, yeah, so they can get understands about, okay, this is basically the locations near some feature, near shore, or near some mountains or hills. So this is basically the information we gathered from them, and we use the translator, yeah, because they are not speaking bahasa. So I think that is the beauty of the stakeholders engagement in Indonesia. We are very diverse, but when we tell them what is our main aim in this activity, they will then, okay, yeah, we will support you. We will, basically that's the basic of Indonesians community, yeah, genuine, yeah. So they are very helpful. They are very supportive in all of the process. And later on, what will be in the future? The main questions from our side on the private sector is, will online or virtual communications may replace the offline or physical meetings, or will hybrid model can be implemented effective and efficient? So in the future, we are also thinking about some alternatives to do this one, because one of our projects in Makassar also happened prior and in the beginning of the COVID. So we try through the telephony base, but it's still challenging for us. And internally, we also try to design what is the best way in the post-COVID era, yeah, to do this stakeholders engagement, especially in the rural areas. So yeah, that's basically sharing session from Rahaskan in DHV. So hopefully we can get some insight, also some response from the audience and other speakers. Yeah, feel free to open discussion later on. Thank you, Edwin. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Pak Dimas, for this comprehensive overview, both theoretically and leading to some more practical examples. We are continuing with some more practical examples by Mr. Hamong, who is affiliated to GRUHA, the People Coalition for the Right to Water. So please, Hamong, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Edwin. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here to join with this discussion. I would like to share my experience in the context of water supply advocacy for the poor community, especially in Jakarta. And I believe that this issue is very contextual with the how the strategy of urban management, and also how to make the city become inclusive. And based on my experience, I think there are three interconnected issues related to the access to water for poor community. The first is access to water as a human rights. And you know, it's not easy for the poor community to get water, especially in slum area in Jakarta. And the role of state is very important on this context, to protect, to fulfill, and to respect the right to water of the people. The second issue, I think this is also important, is governance and investment of infrastructure from the public water services. And the third issue is related to the environmental issue, like quality of water and so on. So, in my perspective, to overcome three challenges, I think my proposal, there are two things that need to be done. The first is how to make water issue, including access to water, as a development priority in Indonesia. And budget state from the government will be one of the indicator, and also the coordination between institutions who has responsibility in the context of water resources. I think it's very, very important. The second things, we have to move from good governance to quality of government, because from procedural approach to substantial approach to make all of the people can get access to water. I think enough from me. That's it. And thank you for your attention. Back to you, Edwin.
Thank you very much, Hamong, for this comprised and brief overview and your experiences with stakeholder meetings. We now continue with the experience of Rizka from the NGO Kota Kita, who has some more practical input to our discussion. Please go ahead, Rizka.
Hi, Edwin. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you, Meta, for sharing the screen. Good afternoon, everyone. Maybe I should introduce myself briefly. My name is Rizka, and I'm from Kota Kita. So we are an NGO based in Indonesian city of Surakarta, focusing on urban planning and citizen participation in the development of cities. So the theme of today's discussion is actually very relevant with our work. And we have been working in more than 20 Indonesian cities, including Semarang, Makassar, Manado, Bima, and Pontianak, and many other cities actually, in different urban issues, including climate resilience, urban governance, urban inclusivity, and water management. And in today's session, we're happy to share our participatory approaches in promoting inclusive and resilient urban development. So we will be sharing basically our practical experiences from the ground. So maybe next, Mbak Meta. You can jump to 2 slides. Yeah, next again. So yeah, at Kota Kita, we believe that everyone has equal voice in the development of cities. So we think it's important in the development that it's involve everyone in the city. So not only the government, but also the communities and other stakeholders as well. And in particular, we want to emphasize that it's important to involve the marginalized community in the process, because their voice are often left out in the development process. So next, I think here we will share our approaches and tools and principles in promoting inclusive and resilient urban development. So first, we would like to start with the data, because we know that in the context of Indonesia, often there is not enough fine-grained data to inform planning processes. So in Kota Kita, we often promote community-based data collection. So this means like we work together with the local communities in gathering data, particularly data that's not available in the current government database. So this usually in the around the issue of climate change, disability. So there's usually not much data available out there. So we believe that this approach is not only address the data gaps, but also promote knowledge sharing to the communities as the one who's collecting the data. Next. So we usually work with community groups like youth groups, RW or RT leaders, and women groups, because we might not realize this, but they are the one who knows their neighborhood. So if we want to create a planning that is informative and with using the fine-grained data, so they are the source of data. They are the one that can be, helping with collecting the data that is accurate at the ground level. So we are a lot of time we work with them, even with the person with disabilities, when we are collecting data on that issue, on the issue of disabilities. Next. So, and the second, we understand that everyone matters in the planning and development process. So it's important to engage both local government and local communities in the process. So we often use tools for the co-design process, which we facilitate discussion with the government and the communities using different type of tools that encourage more participation from all stakeholders. Next. Why basically why working with the local government? Because they are the one who can influence the policy change at the city and even national level. And why we should work with the community, because they are the one who's like facing day-to-day challenges, and they are the one who knows about the condition of their neighborhood. So they should be involved, and their aspirations should be captured in the process. Next. And to continue with this point, at Kota Kita, we always promote the inclusive approach and promote the use of creative tools, because basically, often in the development process, the marginalized group are not involved in the process, so their voice are often not represented in the city planning or in the community-based planning, because they're simply not involved in the process. So at Kota Kita, we try to use different tools that is in one way simple, but in another way try to capture the problem from their perspective, using like very simple tools like photo, and then maybe you can next. I will give some example of the tools that we use. So first is the participatory photography, where the usually this is like children or women groups are they can take a picture of their neighborhood, the problem of their neighborhood, so we can see the problem from their lens. And next. Next. The other example, this is our work with the person with disabilities, where we try to capture their journey in the city. So this way we know like where is the gaps in the city in terms of the inclusion of them. So where is the area that they cannot access, something like that. So this is like in one way it's simple and easy to use, but it captures where the problems are. Next. And yeah, often the voice of these vulnerable groups are not captured. So we tried in every process to as much involve the different groups, including the person with disabilities and elderly and even youth. Next. And next. This is one of the example where we do the co-design workshop with school kids to identify the problems around their school, to basically promote what is the safe condition that they imagine and how to better improve the safety in their area. So our point here is it's important to involve everybody to capture the aspiration, different aspiration by different marginalized group. And the other point that we would like to highlight is to explore the opportunities of other actors to participate. So development is not only the responsibility of the government, but as much as we can, we should promote participation of other actors, including the local communities. And next. This is the example of our work in Semarang, where we create a resilient kampung guideline to basically promote local climate action at different levels. So we hope with this guideline, there is more action at the community level that can be further promoted using this easy to use guideline. Next. And the last point that I would like to bring here is it's important to build coalition and advocacy at all levels, because in Indonesian context, usually large-scale projects tend to be driven by the national government. But here, like actually all stakeholders matter. So either it's small scale and then city scale or national scale, it should be all of the stakeholders should be put in the same table. So we need to make sure that everyone is on board and in the same page towards the more inclusive and resilient development. I think that's all from me for now. Back to you, Edwin.
Thank you very much, Rizka, for this very elaborative presentation of your experiences. And I also like to thank the other presenters for giving a full, I would say, overview of the challenges that are ahead in specifically East Kalimantan, the perspectives that are developed for the province, and all the insights that have been shared with us from the different kind of urban planning, urban kind of exercises towards sustainability, moving from Jakarta to Kalimantan to Semarang and to the other. After these presentations, I was just notified that we have until 1:10. So the discussion is unfortunately, the space for discussion is unfortunately quite short. I'd like to give the floor to Kai, who wants to answer a question that has been posed by the audience through the chat. Please go ahead, Kai.
Yeah, I already kind of answered in the comment because I didn't want to limit discussion to only our project. But I think overall what we are also doing is how to say, try to evaluate whether we can really collaborate to promote sustainable and inclusive urbanization in Indonesian context, also by reference to SDGs, because this was the kind of research call from the both Dutch and Indonesian governments that they were very interested whether our research and collaboration can actually contribute to their overall goal of achieving multiple targets. So what we are doing in our project, but I think other projects also that try to evaluate the process of urbanization by reference to some specific targets, building sustainable communities and cities. And challenges, maybe Mr. Sani can perhaps react better than me, because you know the province and you are the one who is receiving the big project in your island. So maybe I can give a floor to Pak Rejanta.
Yeah, let me add something that our view about this sustainability aspect is, among others, we try to see the new capital city of Indonesia in East Kalimantan as a part of broader ecological region. That means that if we have to evaluate the sustainability of the city, should be seen within the context of this wider region. We learn a lot from Jakarta that the city actually belongs to greater ecological region, what we know as a catchment area, which also belong to other province. So in East Kalimantan context, the location of this new capital, we will see whether the border of the catchment area is also more or less coincide with this border of this area of the extension of this new capital. If so, then probably in the future there will be no problem like flood, which is Jakarta is suffering a lot from this because of this mismatch of border between the capital and the catchment area of the watershed. So then one of the thing that I should mention, how we should look at the sustainability of this new capital city. Pak Kaban, mungkin ada sesuatu yang mau disampaikan tentang bagaimana komitmen pemerintah daerah tentang keberlanjutan pembangunan di Kalimantan.
Ya, pembangunan di Kalimantan kita memiliki sumber daya alam dan memiliki paru-paru dunia. Heart of Borneo itu akan kita terus pertahankan. Ada beberapa kawasan hutan lindung yang tetap kita pertahankan dan itu kita jaga betul kondisinya sampai saat ini, dan itu kita akan terus lakukan dengan juga memperbarui area-area atau lokasi-lokasi hutan yang rusak, seperti misalnya kawasan-kawasan mangrove, kita tanami lagi dengan tanaman mangrove. Di Kalimantan Timur banyak sekali mangrove, salah satunya adalah Balikpapan mangrove yang merupakan destinasi dunia, dan sepanjang Kalimantan juga akan kita terus tanami dengan mangrove. Di sana ada Delta Mahakam yang kita juga harus pertahankan, dan ini merupakan tempat daripada binatang atau ikan-ikan udang yang hidup di pinggir laut, di rawa-rawa laut ya, seperti kepiting yang terkenal di Kalimantan, kemudian udangnya juga dan sebagainya. Ini yang terus kita pertahankan.
Okay. Yeah, there is a commitment from the provincial government to to protect forests and also to recover mangrove, which has been in damage for several years. And also he mentioned something about the commitment to protect the coast where local people depends on sources of fish and so forth. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for answering this question. Fortunately, we have a kind of jump carrot kind of approach here, so we still have 5 minutes more to go. So are there any questions maybe for the wider public to one of the presenters, or from the presenters to each other, that you want to raise? Then go ahead.
Maybe then can I ask something?
Yes,
to, if nobody, because I was a bit struck by what Hamo said about we don't want to, well, it's not we don't want, but in a way we have to move sort of away from good governance talk to how to ensure quality government in providing basic services and ensuring sustainability, inclusivity. I find that nice slogan almost, but how do you see it to collaborate with the government still, but then try to engage with other, communities, with other stakeholders in order to ensure such a, keeping government quality high enough, and how the actually Dutch or international community also should engage with such a manifesto, because we're indeed talking all the time about good governance, but I think what you said actually was beautiful.
Yeah.
You want to react?
Yeah, thank you, Otsuki. Yeah, because I said like that because based on my experience, we try to make participatory approach in the community. We make a plan with the community, and then we move to the government. This is our planning
proposal.
Propose to the government, and government, a lot of challenges in the government sector. So the implementation is not always running well. But in other side, I think the issue like water, education, health, public health, it's about, we need a political will on that. We need role of state at issues, and the bureaucracy has to be changed. In my perspective, especially in Indonesia, we are not only talking about good governance, transparency, accountability, participatory, it's procedural issues, but we have to move. The government has to seeing like citizen, have to using impartial approach. That's the quality of government. So I don't know how to combine participatory approach and quality government, but for me, participatory approach is not enough, because we will because there is a political barrier in the government sector. That's my response, Otsuki. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Hamong. This is maybe a nice point to wind this session off. We still have a couple of years to go, and we still have an ongoing discussion on inclusive government, moving from inclusion to adaptive to pluralist, and maybe we can call our next session beyond seeing like the state move to seeing like citizens, like Hamong mentioned. So that can be maybe be the live session next year, I hope. I take the floor to thank very much the organizers, Meta Feliciani, who makes all the technical options possible, and also Octavia from Nefigneso. Thank you very much for making this session possible, and also the presenters giving us a lot of inspiration that is not finished, I would say, yet, but needs and requires a lot of discussions in the coming years, and I hope that we can find the opportunity to further continue discussing all these issues in the coming years. Thank you very much. Also the participants for joining these sessions, and hope to find you in another opportunity and meet you in real life. Thank you and goodbye. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you, Edwin. Thank you all.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Terima kasih banyak. Sampai ketemu lagi ya.
Iya.
Oke, Edwin.